make a lot of enemies by saying this, including probably Mr. Florendo. You can cut that out. But I think overdubbing is completely ridiculous and like cheating.
For me, there are no rules in music. As long as somebody will listen to it, it's music. Whether I listen to it or not is a different story.
Like if there's like a really long, fast lick, they'll do it like by the bar. And part of playing music and like being good at music and being like technically good is having the endurance to keep playing and play through an entire passage and phrase it and, you know, play all the right notes. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't record it and put it out and make people think you can, because I feel like that's lying.
If I have these musical concepts or musical urges in my head and I want to get them out, and if I don't have the musicians to do it, because I don't play the drums, I don't play the bass guitar, but if I have electronic synthesizers like Reason as an example, or any of the plugins in Pro Tools, if I can plunk them out myself and record them all and lay them down one by one, and I get all these ideas out, then what's wrong with that?
There's integrity in each instrument. There's integrity in the vocal cords. And if you're mimicking that integrity and you're auto-tuning your voice, or you're using a synth to create sounds that aren't from the right instrument, you are kind of bashing that. And people don't want to see that. People don't want to see it being faked because they can do that at home. It's all about the magic of each instrument, of each performer, of each talent.
I think what I'm looking for when I'm listening to a studio recording is, you know, what the composition is. You know, like it's like reading a book. You know, there's a very explicit message that it's trying to convey, and I want to know what that is, and I want to interpret that for myself. You know, live performances, you know, because they're not as defined. It's a little bit more like someone giving a speech. That, you know, they have an outline. You know, maybe they're referencing that book, and they're going along with the theme of that book, but they're saying everything that they think, and it's more expressing about themselves individually.
You have this kind of goal in mind, and that goal makes you so alive. It's like you're burning with the fuel to entertain your audience, right? And you can be alive, you can make mistakes and people will forgive you, and you can add little things here and there and kind of experiment. While as in the studio, it's like taking a test. It's this really serious thing where you're recording your music, which is a great thing, but it's a very serious thing in which you can't make any mistakes. You're trying to get it perfect.
Sunshine when she's gone, and she's always gone too long. Every time she goes away.
Usually when you do a studio recording, you record one performer at a time. So somebody lays down the basic structure of the song, either the drummer or somebody, typically the drummer. And everybody follows that kind of pattern. And so they don't have all the other musicians in the room with them to kind of play off the energy. There's no crowds of thousands of people in front of them in the studio, so the energy really has to come from the performer.
Back then, nation. Okay, missed the very last line. Missed the very last line.
Well, when you're in front of an audience, they're all watching you. You know that you have thousands of eyes waiting for you to do something that they will find entertaining. And so that's very empowering because you know they want you to succeed, you know? So you have this sense of power over them because all of them are watching you and you can do anything, you know?
Yeah, so if you're a performer of any kind, you know that when the drummer's into it, drummer's putting some new licks, maybe trying some new ideas, some new riffs. The bass guitarist might be playing his old stuff, but then he throws in some new stuff, and you're like listening, and you're playing the piano part. You go, whoa, yeah, that's kind of cool. I'm listening to that. And so you add in your little energy. So the kind of vibe that happens between musicians when they listen to each other and they feel what's going on, suddenly the drummer gets soft, for example. Oh, okay, we follow that lead. Normally he doesn't, but somehow now he's feeling it's got to be soft now. Or the solo is really going off. It's just going off, and normally the solo is 64 bars, but he wants to keep going, and now it ends up 128 bars. That's cool, and people just go with it. You don't, in a studio setting, it's pretty rare that, well, typically a song has a structure to it, and everybody follows that structure because you're all following the track that was laid down as the structure track. But I do know that there are some performances that you can't get live. There's a group, for example, that I used to listen to a lot when I was in high school, called Singers Unlimited. It's a group of 3 men and a woman, and they would sing vocal jazz in 27-part harmony, because the female singer would sing all the different parts, all the males would sing all the different parts. They'd overdub, and there's no way you could do that, right, in live performance.
There are a lot of people with these amazing natural voices, and then there are a lot of other people who have these, you know, auto-tuned things on TV and on the radio. And I mean, they may be famous and they may be well regarded by the American public, but there's no satisfaction in that, because you know that you're not a good singer, and I don't see how they can be happy with that. I wouldn't be.
Auto-tuning, like pitch correction, where you can't hear it.
Oh, hello.
It's like musical lying to me. Like, I think if you can't sing, you can't sing. Go learn how to, then come back. But I think, you know, for like the just weird funky effects and stuff, that can be really cool. Like Cher, when Cher did it in the 80s, she was the first person to use auto-tune. It was just for the effect, and it was weird and it was cool, and people dug it. And then now it's like T-Pain auto-tunes everything because he can't sing, but he wants to sound like he can.
So using auto-tune to correct pitches because the performer didn't quite get it right that day, single notes here and there, I'm okay with that. Because if you have a bunch of tools at your fingertips to create different sounds and new sounds, that's probably what's gonna capture people's attention. I think musicians can become good at any instrument that they have, but what's wrong with someone being good at playing electronic instruments? That's an instrument also. I mean, if the guy who plays in front of the ferry building, all the drums, all the trash cans and stuff, he's pretty good. He's a good drummer. He plays anything. It's just trash. He just plays it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Music to me has always been this cyclical thing. It goes, pendulum swings one way and it swings the other way.
It works in these cycles. People start to like this, and then when they get tired of this, they look back and they're like, oh, hey, that was cool. Let's bring it back.
So, I mean, it kind of goes in cycles. It's just because of the technology that everything's synthesizers right now. Like, you know, it really goes by like the decade, the equivalent, you know, like 50 years ago. You had the Monkees, the Mama and the Papas, the Beach Boys and all that. And they had their little wave of everything's good and happy and we're going to the beach and, you know, it's wonderful. Like we called the Monkees, no one knows why, but it's cool. And then everyone kind of got sick of that, and you had Bob Dylan coming in with one guitar and his atrocious and yet wonderful voice.
During the 80s, there was the whole synth boom where everything became electronic all of a sudden.
You know, the synth pop, glam rock stuff. 90s, everyone's depressed and it's grunge and, you know, folk rock and people wearing plaid. And we're just
because we're listening to electronic music now doesn't mean that the fad of acoustic guitar will not come back the next decade or the next year, or the fad of, you know, using the sitar.
And probably in like 5 or 6 years, people will like be like, oh, dude, you know who Bob Dylan is? Yes, of course I know who Bob Dylan is. You were stuck listening to like T-Pain. And I was listening to Bob Dylan, yeah.